a professor of applied linguistics at the University of Hawaii, you'd think he'd be well primed to rules and grammatical rules, but you know, he himself saying, look, nice, but like, just give me a go on this tree. And there's later on, he says that the teacher comes in, and the class started off with a discussion of the imperfect versus perfect, with the teacher eliciting rules from the class. She ended up with more than a dozen rules on the board, which I'm never going to remember when I need them. I'm just going to think of it as background and foreground and hope that I can get a feel for the rest of it. In other words, he's sort of inventing his own rule, a rule of thumb, just to get him through. Yeah, but all there's 12 different rules for imperfect, you know. And again, I'm saying he's a professor of applied linguistics, and yet we do this with our students a lot. We sort of think, well, they've got to get the full picture of the grammar, and we kind of foist it on them. As you were saying, you know, unless it's combined with opportunities to see it and hear it and use it, then
so if you're aware of it, you're listening. Exactly. For example, to, oh, you said that because you want it to mean that. So once you've got the rules there, it will be there when you're actually hearing it.
So what does this mean in terms of teaching? What are the implications in terms of teaching? Imagine you've got the situation that we've got here where you're teaching people 2 or 3 times a week English. So they don't have this constant exposure that Karen had. They've got, you know, say 3 or 4 hours a week. How are you going to distribute your time?
Well, you develop a need in them for certain grammar,
How do you do that?
So, well, you maybe establish a relevant topic. You begin with a relevant topic, and then it should be a process. You try and elicit from them a need to speak, a need to communicate, a need to say something because they want to express themselves. And that's when you zone in.
That's very interesting. You're way ahead of me, Susie, actually. I mean, maybe we should pursue that point now. But what you're saying is you provide a kind of a need, like a real life need to communicate in the classroom. It's given that they don't have that outside. And then you kind of feed in the grammar as they need it. That's extremely interesting.
Well, kind of from that point of view, what you learn is, and this was, I was lucky enough to have a tremendously inspirational sort of Dead Poets Society style Spanish teacher, and he took that kind of line, and what you realise when that happens is, I mean, first of all, you take the grammar with both hands because then you can actually say what you want to say, like you were having a discussion with someone, like I totally disagree with you because, and then you haven't got the grammar. When you get it, you will use it, but also language learning, if you do it grammatically, kind of seems like some stupid hypothetical game, you know, like it's like maths or something. You can't really apply it to your life. And then suddenly, if it's illustrated that, you know, you're talking about what kind of films you like, or you're talking about what your plans for the future are, it's not a game anymore. It's to do with you, and therefore, if you learn in that kind of context, it's a lot more real.
It's a lot more real. It's simulating, or if you like, what is it simulating? It is in a sort of classroom, safe classroom environment, what happens in real life acquisition type situations like Karen's. It requires, though, of the teacher considerable skill, wouldn't you think? Why?
Well, because first of all, you've got to be sure that the topic is relevant, and you don't want to give them too much. You've got to try and create the context for that need. So they're not consciously thinking, well, you know, today we're going to learn this specific formal grammar piece, but they're thinking about other things, and their desire to communicate or express their opinion on the topic.
Okay, so there's that skill. There's a skill of being able to set up communication and get students interested and involved. And that's, I suppose, in a sense, I mean, it's what I call the kind of the dinner party hostess kind of skill. Is that it's a socializing kind of skill. It doesn't require any kind of great academic abilities. It's the ability to sit down and get people talking about something interesting. But then you've got to have the skill to, as you said, zoom in on the grammar that they need and sort it out, which you haven't been able to prepare for or anticipate. So that requires, on your part, quite a considerable sort of thinking on your feet ability, which may be more than many teachers will be prepared to take on.
Well, I think you can. I think you can prepare yourself. I think that it depends on the topic.
Mm-hmm. You can anticipate what's likely to come up.
Yes.
Another difficulty might be that if we take your dinner party analogy, people don't like to know they're being manipulated. So if they can see you pulling the strings and leading them towards a specific piece of language, it annoys them. And similarly, if you dump two people together at a dinner party, all right, oh, he's single and you're single, you know, maybe you should talk to each other, then people kind of resent that. So you've got to do it in such a way as it's almost invisible, which is really difficult.
Yes, it's a very good point that about, and also students' expectations of classrooms are not that it's going to be like a dinner party. Or more, let's say, students' parents' expectations of classrooms. So you've got all sorts of problems there about expectations.